The FIA is implementing several rule changes for the 2023 Formula One season. The floor is central to this, as it must comply with a number of changes beginning of 2023. There will also be a number of other technical and sporting changes that the governing body deems necessary. Today we'll be taking a look at some of these changes, so stick around to the end of the video and click on that notification bell for more updates. Without further ado, let's get started. Aerodynamic modifications. Now, the main changes for the 2023 F1 season concern the car's floor and aim to eliminate porpoising once and for all. The FIA claimed that safety was the primary motivator for these changes, but this claim was challenged by several teams. The parties have since reached an agreement and the World Motor Sports Council has approved the rule changes. Raising the floor's edges. The FIA originally intended to increase the floor edges by 25mm, but this has since been reduced to 15mm. This follows loud protests from F1 teams who have already dealt with porpoising and can thus simply lower the ride height. The FIA wants to make it more difficult to seal the underside of the car by limiting the deflection of the floor, which is combined with the raised edges. Now, raising the floor sides will make it a bit harder for teams to physically seal the Venturi tunnels from the ambient air pressure. Increasing downforce from the bottom of the car is currently possible, but there is a risk of blocking airflow and triggering porpoising. For those not familiar with the Venturi tunnels, there are slots beneath the car that generate downforce by accelerating the air beneath, creating a low pressure zone due to the Venturi effect. The effect is to suck the cars towards the ground while producing only a small amount of dirty air behind the car. Diffuser throat expansion. The throat is the part of the subfloor tunnel that is the most constricted. At that point, the pressure shift takes place, which speeds up the flow of air and increases the amount of downforce. The entrance to the throat can be found at the very bottom of the tunnel directly behind the driver's seat. An exponential rise in air velocity can be observed in the very last few millimeters of space between the throat and the ground. However, at some point in time, that gap may grow too narrow, which will result in the flow becoming stagnant. The Fédération Internationale des Automobiles, or FIA, intends to raise the diffuser throat so that the underbelly of the vehicle can better accommodate variations in the dynamic ride height. Vertical force sensors with high precision. Starting at Spa-Francorchamps, sensors designed to record the impact of crashes will measure the vertical forces of the cars. These sensors will thus serve a dual purpose for the rest of the season. However, in 2023, specific sensors will be installed to measure vertical forces more accurately. Weight. The car's minimum weight will be reduced slightly. In 2023, the minimum weight will be 796 kilograms, down from 798 kilograms in 2022. The minimum weight for the 2022 Formula One season has also been raised after the majority of teams had difficulties getting the car to weigh. Front wing guidelines are being tightened. During the Canadian Grand Prix weekend, Mercedes created a stir by unveiling a remarkable front wing outfitted with various flaps designed to increase downforce. However, the F1 will allow less freedom in front wing design in 2023, implying that such a revolutionary design will most likely not be seen again. Modifications to the roll bar. After the terrible accident that occurred during Guan Yu Zhou's race at the British Grand Prix, the roll bar was found to be unable to resist the impact of the collision, and as a result, it broke off. As a result of this, adjustments to the roll bar were judged to be required. The component needs to be able to sustain greater weights in addition to the 15G impact when it comes into contact with the ground. In addition, beginning in the year 2023, the roll bar will need to be able to sustain forces in both the forward and the reverse directions. The mirrors are going to receive yet another safety upgrade as a result, in order to improve visibility in the blind spot and define the brake circuit. The surface area of the mirrors will be expanded. The temperature of the fuel. The FIA has also decided to make a rule change after fuel temperature issues arose several times during the 2022 F1 season. Whereas the fuel must not be colder than 20 degrees Celsius in 2022, it must not be colder than 10 degrees below the ambient temperature beginning in 2023. In cold weather, a minimum temperature of 10 degrees Celsius will be enforced. A weather service designated by the FIA will record the ambient temperature 1 hour before practice sessions or 3 hours before the race. Use of tires during qualifying. Things will also change during the 2 qualifying sessions next year. Drivers will also be required to use specific tire types during each segment of the qualifying sessions as a test. Also, the total number of tire sets permitted over the course of the race weekend will be reduced from 13 to 11. During the 2 qualifying sessions for this test, drivers will be assigned 4 sets of softs instead of the previous 8, and the number of hards and mediums will be increased from 3 to 4. Each stage of the qualifying requires drivers to use a different compound, a hard tire in Q1, a medium tire in Q2, and a soft tire in Q3. Sprint competitions. In 2023, instead of the 3 that were previously announced, there will be a total of 6 sprint weekend events. This was also the initial concept that the FIA had for the Formula 1 season that is currently underway, but the governing body was unable to come to an agreement with the teams over it. When 2023 rolls around, there will be twice as many sprint events as there were in 2022. Curfew. Adjustments to the curfew rules will also be made to provide more relief to F1 teams' mechanics, given the packed calendar. The curfew will be extended to 14 hours before the start of FP3 in 2023, up from 13 hours now. It is planned to increase to 15 hours by 2024. There will also be fewer exceptions. Friday exceptions will remain the same, they'll be allowed twice a year, but the number of exceptions on the days preceding will be drastically reduced. On Wednesdays, 8 exceptions are currently permitted. This number will decrease to 4 in 2023 and then to 2 in 2024. On Thursdays, the number drops from 6 to 3 in 2023 and then to 2 in 2024. Grid penalties have been updated. After the enormous amount of misunderstanding that surrounded the allocation of grid penalties for the Italian GP, it became pretty evident that Formula 1 needed to reconsider the rules that were at play. As a direct consequence of this, the regulatory body published a revised version of the regulations on October 19th. Clarifying the applicability of grid penalties for both the years 2022, it has also been decided that drivers who have received grid penalties of 15 places or fewer will be given a provisional starting position that is equivalent to their qualifying performance plus the grid penalty. In the event that 2 or more drivers finish in the same position, the order will be decided according to their times from qualifying. In that scenario, the driver who has the slowest time will keep his current position, while the driver who has the faster times will move ahead of him and take the lead. Following that, drivers with no grid penalties will be assigned the unoccupied starting positions in the order of their qualifying results. Drivers with grid penalties will be moved up to any unoccupied starting positions following this allocation. Drivers who have more than 15 grid penalties must start behind every other classified driver. If this applies to multiple drivers, the qualifying results will be used to determine the order. Drivers who did not set a time during qualifying but were given permission to start by the stewards will be assigned a starting position behind all classified drivers. The classification in FP3 or FP1, if it's a sprint weekend, determines the relative order in this case. If a driver does not have a time to his name due to a disqualification, he will start behind drivers who did not qualify for other reasons. Furthermore, for 2023, the rule will be that no more than 5 grid positions will be penalized for replacing gearbox parts. In 2022, it appeared that the timing of gearbox changes could affect the order of the imposing grid penalties, but this should be resolved by next year. When replacing multiple parts, the maximum grid penalty will be applied to one part, instead of a sum of penalties for each part. Well, what do you think of these changes? Do you think that they will have a positive impact in the next season? Share your thoughts in the comment section down below, and don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe button for more of the latest news on F1. We'll see you in the next video. Bye.